GOP royals Liz and Dick Cheney have endorsed Vice President Kamala Harris for president. Let that sink in. The man who many said really led the nation during the Bush era said he would pull the lever for a Democrat. Former Vice President Dick Cheney said that, quote, "In our nation's 248-year history, there has never been an individual who is a greater threat to our republic than Donald Trump. He tried to steal the last election using lies and violence to keep himself in power after the voters had rejected him. He can never be trusted with power again." Former Wyoming Representative Liz Cheney, his daughter, who took a stand against President Trump after January 6th, also announced her choice for president late last week. Here she was speaking at Duke University on Wednesday.
Not only is what I've just said about the danger that Trump poses something that should prevent people from voting for him, but I don't believe that we have the luxury of writing in candidates' names, particularly in swing states. And as a conservative, as someone who believes in and cares about the Constitution, I have thought deeply about this. And because of the danger that Donald Trump poses, not only am I not voting for Donald Trump, but I will be voting for Kamala Harris in this election.
And here she was on ABC News just yesterday.
Donald Trump presents a challenge and a threat fundamentally to the republic. We see it on a daily basis. Somebody who was willing to use violence in order to attempt to seize power, to stay in power. Someone who represents unrecoverable catastrophe, frankly. I think it's important for people to recognize he's not a conservative.
The youngest son of the late Senator John McCain, Jimmy McCain, also came out with support for the vice president after Trump's appearance at Arlington National Cemetery. McCain called Trump's visit to the burial site a violation. He said, quote, "that I feel that Kamala Harris and Tim Walz embody a group of people that will help make this country better, that will take us forward." It was only weeks ago that Jim McCain changed his voter registration to Democrat, according to CNN.
But at the end of the day, does it really matter that these lifelong conservatives are turning their backs on Trump? Are they affiliated with a GOP that no longer exists? Joining us now to weigh in on all of this, what we can expect from Tuesday night's debate between Harris and Trump is senior spokesperson at the Democratic National Committee, Hannah Muldavin. Hannah, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
You know, it's interesting to see the Democrats are welcoming, as far as I can tell, the endorsement, the support of the Cheney family, some members of the McCain family. You know, I can remember, I'm somewhat old. I remember the demonization of particularly the Cheneys coming from Democrats. So many, you know, Dick Cheney was like Darth Vader, was the big villain of the aughts from the Democratic standpoint. What does it say that now they're safely welcomed in the fold?
Well, thank you for having me. You know, before I was at the Democratic National Committee, I worked with Congresswoman Liz Cheney on the January 6th committee. So I was able to see up close, working directly with her every day, who this woman is and how much she cares about our country. And so the fact that you're seeing her, and you mentioned Dick Cheney, who was not always welcomed in the Democratic Party and was not a favorite among Democrats, standing up for what is right. And they're doing that because of what Donald Trump did in the 2020 election. He tried to overturn the election. If he's elected again, he said he'll be a dictator on day one. And so I think it's important for Democrats to listen to these voices, to welcome them into the party with a broad, diverse coalition. And that's what it's going to take to have us win in November, right? This is going to be a really close race. And we need all of the voices, all different perspectives out there, showing why they are supporting a Harris-Walz ticket.
It's pretty extraordinary to see. You know, I did not have Bernie Sanders and Dick Cheney supporting the same candidate for president on my bingo card even just weeks ago. So it's been incredible to see that change, especially with the Cheney family, as Robbie just mentioned. I wonder, you know, as he said in his intro, you know, are they still, you know, do they still have credit, do you think, Hannah, on the right with some folks? I think, you know, people have reported about this idea, this notion of a permission structure, right? If we see folks like this come out in support of the vice president, kind of giving her cover, do you think that will actually sway some of the folks that are, somewhat in the middle of the Republican Party?
Kevin, I think that's a great question. We know that Dick Cheney, Liz Cheney, they're conservatives. They disagree on a lot of issues that Kamala Harris might say one thing on and they say the other. But it's not just the Cheneys. It's not just John McCain's son who came out against this. Today, we saw that 10 former senior military officials came out and endorsed Kamala Harris. This is a bipartisan group of people because they know that Donald Trump would be a danger to our democracy if elected again. I'll also say that we had one of the best, I think the best, grassroots fundraising numbers in the month of August. We had 3 million donors, over half of those new. Over a fifth of those, or almost a fifth of those, were Republicans. This is going to be a close race. In 2020, it was 40,000 votes across the battleground states. That was the difference between Joe Biden winning and him losing. We know we have to reach out to everybody, even if it's just your neighbor who might be a Republican, but might also not be excited about another Donald Trump presidency. And we're bringing them into the fold. And folks like Dick Cheney, Liz Cheney, these national security advisors, Republicans that know Donald Trump best, them speaking out is important because it brings everybody else in and lets them know it's okay to be a part of this ticket that's full of joy, that's full of hope. We're not going back. And I think a lot of these Republicans might not want to go back to a Donald Trump presidency as well.
I think the attitude from a lot of people on the right has been good riddance, frankly, has been a desire to part with the policies that the Cheneys and maybe to some extent the McCains represented in terms of the Republican Party being very hawkish, very interventionist on foreign policy. Donald Trump has spoken against that many times. You can, debate or argue whether his tenure as president lived up to the kind of rhetoric surrounding that. But I think the view of many on the right is that, these people, the military advisors, national security people who got a lot of important foreign policy questions wrong over the years, good riddance. We don't want them on the new party we're building anyway.
I think a Donald Trump presidency, another one, would just be a lot more of what his last one was, but a little more dangerous, right? Which is it's all about himself. His policies don't stand in conservatism or the Constitution, as Liz Cheney said, because they're all centered around helping himself. Even his Extreme Project 2025 agenda would take away and ban abortion nationwide, take away our freedoms, give tax cuts to the wealthy, him and his friends. So whatever Donald Trump stands for and however the Republican Party is shifting, it's clear that the one he is in charge of right now is one that benefits him and himself. And I think that's in stark contrast to a Democratic Party ticket led by Vice President Harris and Governor Walz. They're putting forward policies that are strong internationally, right? I mentioned these former senior military officials that say that she's actually a stronger leader than Donald Trump. We want her at the helm. We're not just denouncing the craziness that he brings, but we're endorsing a Democratic ticket because we believe in what she would be able to bring to the office.
That's an interesting point, Hannah, that so many of these folks aren't just saying we're out there against Donald Trump and his policies and a return to those 4 years, but we're actually endorsing the vice president in terms of her character and stances on a lot of these international issues, especially Ukraine, that we've seen play out. A number of these issues will certainly be on display during tomorrow night's debate. All eyes are going to be on that. 50 million viewers turned into the first debate. This is the first time we've seen a matchup between the vice president and the former president. I wonder, Hannah, if you could take us in the room a little bit to talk about, what the vice president is thinking, debate prep heading into this all-important debate tomorrow night.
It's going to be a really great opportunity for the American people to see Kamala Harris on the debate stage against Donald Trump. And I think we should be honest with ourselves. This is a man who, I believe this is his 7th presidential debate. He's done this before. He's good at this. He won the debate back in June. His team made sure that the mics would be muted so he would be more disciplined. And the vice president said earlier in an interview that she's expecting him to lie. We know that this man lies a lot on the debate stage. And so it's going to be a tough matchup. What I'll say, though, is Vice President Harris is preparing. She knows that her policies are more popular than his. She knows that it's important to talk about her plans to lower costs for working families, to make sure that the cost of groceries, the cost of housing goes down, and that she wants to talk about protecting our freedoms, unlike Donald Trump, who wants to rip them away with his extreme agenda. So it's going to be really tough out there, Kevin. This is a man who knows what he's doing, but Vice President Kamala Harris has always been a fighter for the people, and I think we'll see that on the debate stage tomorrow night.
Hannah, thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate it.
Thanks, Hannah.